The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, silencing the entire reception hall. All eyes turned to Mark Stevens, the unassuming single father who had just delivered the most unexpected wedding toast in history. Nobody, especially not the bride's ex, could have predicted how this day would unfold when Sarah had nervously asked Mark to be her +1 just 3 weeks earlier. "I never meant to steal the show," Mark would later confess, "but some truths just need to be spoken." Sarah Matthews stared at her phone, her thumb hovering over the delete button. The wedding invitation glowed mockingly on her screen. Her ex-boyfriend of 5 years, Tyler, was getting married to the woman he'd left her for. The kicker? He wanted her there. For closure, his text had said. Sarah tossed her phone onto her couch and buried her face in her hands. She had exactly 3 weeks to find a date or face the humiliation of attending alone. Sarah worked as a kindergarten teacher at Oak Ridge Elementary, where she'd formed a special bond with one particular student, 5-year-old Emma Stevens. Emma's father, Mark, had been raising her alone since his wife passed away from cancer 2 years earlier. Sarah had watched him transform from a broken man barely holding it together to a devoted father who never missed a school event despite working 2 jobs. The next morning, while supervising recess, Sarah spotted Mark dropping off Emma's forgotten lunchbox. He waved with that familiar tired smile that somehow still reached his eyes. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Mark said, approaching the bench where she sat. "Worse. A wedding invitation from my ex." Mark winced. "Ouch. That's cold. The real kick in the teeth is that I need a date or I'll look pathetic," Sarah admitted, surprising herself with her candor. Mark was quiet for a moment, watching Emma play on the swings. "I could go with you," he offered casually. "I clean up nice, and I've been told my dad jokes are top tier." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Mark Stevens wasn't conventionally handsome, but his kind eyes and the way his whole face lit up when he smiled at Emma made something flutter in her chest. "You'd do that for me? What are friends for?" he shrugged. "Besides, I haven't worn my good suit since Emma's christening. It's probably feeling neglected." What neither of them realized was how this simple favor would change everything. The weeks leading up to the wedding were filled with unexpected moments. Mark insisted they practice being a couple with coffee dates and walks in the park with Emma. Sarah found herself looking forward to their time together, forgetting why they had started spending time with each other in the first place. The night before the wedding, as Mark was leaving after dinner at her apartment, he paused at the door. "Why did you really say yes to going to this wedding?" he asked. "The truth." Sarah leaned against the doorframe. "I guess I wanted to prove something, that I'm okay, that I've moved on." "Have you?" The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. Sarah felt her heart racing. "I'm starting to think I have," she whispered. Mark stepped closer, his hand gently brushing her cheek. "Good," he said softly, "because I'm not sure I could pretend to be just your friend much longer." Their first kiss was interrupted by Mark's phone ringing, the babysitter calling about Emma. The moment slipped away, leaving both of them wondering if they'd crossed a line they couldn't uncross. The wedding day arrived with perfect blue skies that seemed to mock Sarah's churning emotions. Mark picked her up in his freshly washed sedan, looking surprisingly dapper in his charcoal suit. "You clean up good, Stevens," Sarah said, trying to ease the tension from the night before. "Not too shabby yourself, Matthews," he replied with a wink that made her stomach flip. The ceremony was beautiful, which only made it worse. Sarah watched her ex-boyfriend pledge his love to another woman and waited for the jealousy to hit, but it never came. Instead, she found herself glancing at Mark, wondering what it would be like if it were them standing at that altar. At the reception, Tyler approached their table, his new wife in tow. "Sarah, I'm so glad you came," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "And you brought a friend?" "Mark Stevens." Mark stood and extended his hand. "Congratulations, man. Beautiful ceremony. Tyler's eyes narrowed slightly. How long have you two been together? Before Sarah could answer, Mark placed his hand over hers. We've known each other for a while, but sometimes the best things are right in front of you and you don't even notice until the timing's just right. Tyler seemed taken aback by Mark's sincerity. Well, I'm happy for you. Really? As they walked away, Sarah squeezed Mark's hand. That was smooth. Just speaking my truth, he replied, his eyes holding hers a beat too long. The reception progressed with dinner and dancing. Sarah found herself genuinely enjoying the evening, especially when Mark pulled her onto the dance floor for a slow song, holding her close enough that she could feel his heartbeat. You know, he whispered in her ear, I think I'm the luckiest guy here tonight. Because you get to leave with the hottest teacher at Oak Ridge Elementary, she teased. Because I get to be with the woman who made me believe in second chances. The moment was interrupted by the DJ announcing it was time for toasts. Tyler's best man gave a predictable speech full of inside jokes and bachelor party references. Then, to everyone's surprise, Tyler stood up and thanked Sarah for coming, saying he was glad they could both move on and find happiness. Mark tensed beside her. Did you know he was going to do that? Sarah shook her head, feeling all eyes on her. The room felt suffocating. Then Mark stood up, champagne glass in hand. Mind if I say something? The DJ, misreading the situation, handed him a microphone. Sarah tugged at his sleeve, but Mark gently shook her off. I'm not much for public speaking, he began, but I feel like something needs to be said. I'm not really Sarah's boyfriend. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sarah felt her face burning. At least, I wasn't until recently. I'm just a single dad who was lucky enough to have his daughter in her kindergarten class. Sarah asked me to come today because she didn't want to face this alone, and I said yes because, well, who wouldn't want to spend an evening with the most amazing woman in the room? He turned to look directly at Sarah, his eyes soft. What I didn't expect was to fall for her. Hard. The kind of falling that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about second chances. Mark turned back to address Tyler and his bride. So congratulations to you both. Truly. Because if you hadn't broken Sarah's heart, I might never have had the chance to try and mend it. The room was dead silent. Then Mark's champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. The sound seemed to break the spell, and he looked mortified. I'm so sorry, he stammered, looking at Sarah. I didn't mean to. Sarah stood up, tears streaming down her face. For one terrible moment, Mark thought he'd ruined everything. Then she took his face in her hands and kissed him, right there in front of everyone. The room erupted in applause and a few wolf whistles. When they finally broke apart, Sarah whispered, that was either the bravest or the craziest thing anyone's ever done for me. Probably both, Mark admitted. I'm sorry if I embarrassed you. Are you kidding? That was the most romantic thing I've ever experienced. Though you might want to work on your glass-holding skills. They left the reception early, hand in hand, both knowing that something profound had shifted between them. In the car, Sarah asked, Did you mean what you said in there? About falling for me? Mark took her hand and kissed it gently. Every word. I've been falling since the first parent-teacher conference when you told me Emma had the biggest heart in your class. That was over a year ago. I'm a slow mover, he shrugged. Single dad, remember? I had to be sure. And are you? Sure. Mark pulled the car over and turned to face her. Sarah Matthews, I haven't been sure of much since I lost my wife. But I'm sure about you. About us. If you'll give us a chance. 6 months later, Sarah moved into Mark's small house. Emma was thrilled to have her favorite teacher become part of her family. A year after that fateful wedding, Mark proposed during a picnic in the same park where they'd had their first practice date. At their own wedding, Tyler and his wife were among the guests. During Mark's vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the house when he said, "Sometimes the universe breaks your heart so it can be put back together stronger than before." Sarah, you didn't just heal my heart, you made it whole in ways I never thought possible. Emma, serving as flower girl, added her own impromptu vow, "And I promise to always clean my room, most of the time." As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Sarah whispered, "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if I hadn't asked you to that wedding?" Mark twirled her gently. "I like to think we would have found our way to each other eventually. Some people are just meant to be. Even if it takes a broken heart and a shattered champagne glass to get there." "Especially then," he smiled. "The best stories always have a little drama." And as they swayed under the twinkling lights, surrounded by friends and family, Sarah knew that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most painful endings. Sometimes, the person you're meant to be with is standing right in front of you all along, just waiting for the right moment to catch you when you fall. If you found yourself tearing up at Mark and Sarah's story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming real-life stories that remind us all that love often finds us when we least expect it, but exactly when we need it most.